Hey guys, welcome back to Workshop Wednesday, and today I will hopefully be able to answer a question that I get quite a bit on my budget gravel bike builds, where I'm using drop STI shifters with the original brakes from the budget bike. Now, most of those questions revolve around how do I get the brakes to work with the original brake blocks. Now, this largely comes down to the fact that there are two sorts of braking systems: long pull ratio and short pull ratio. Now, on road bikes, you will generally find that STI shifters are short pull ratio, so they're good for the road bike calipers, the center pivot, or even the side pull type road brake calipers, whereas long pull you will find more often than not on mountain bikes, where you have this long brake arm and a cable noodle feeding the cable in through this mechanism on the other side, and then when you pull the brake, the levers both pull in from the sides and apply equal pressure, or at least they should apply equal pressure onto both sides of the rim. So all of the conversions that I've done before have had road style calipers on them, which work perfectly with the road shifters because, as I mentioned, they are short pull. Now, I'm currently upgrading this bike, which started out life as an Arden Black Russian. It's an old 90s, I think, mountain bike, which I'm doing up for a friend and again converting it into a budget gravel bike for him, putting these drop bars on, which of course necessitates having drop shifters. Now, this mountain bike is the first one that I've come across in my conversions that has these longer brake arm levers. And so the problem with this is that when I do pull the brake, the levers move, and they do actually make the wheel stop, but if you can hear, I'm having to engage that brake all the way, and I can still turn the wheel. So it just isn't biting enough because there isn't enough modulation from the short pull shifter down to the long pull brake levers. Now, to get around that issue, there is a hole at the top of the fork here, so I could invest in some road style brake calipers to install on here and get around that problem altogether, but that can be a little bit expensive. You can get them off older bikes, of course, but buying brand new does come with an added expense. However, the other thing that you can use is what's known as a travel agent. So this is effectively a pulley device where you feed the cable through onto a small wheel, push it through an opening onto the larger wheel, and then once correctly fitted, when you pull the shifter, it only pulls a small amount of cable, but then it modulates that around the pulley to pull a larger length of cable that will then engage the longer brake levers. And so with this thing, there's absolutely no need to buy yourself any new brake calipers. Now, I bought this for £10 on Amazon, and I'll leave the link to it below if you are interested in taking a look. They used to be made by a company called Problem Solvers, and they were known as travel agents. However, I can't seem to find, in the UK at least, I can't seem to find this device known as a travel agent, and certainly I can't find anything made by Problem Solvers anymore. So these are actually known as Brake Big Snails on Amazon, but as I say, I'll leave the link below that will take you directly to it, so you don't have to go searching around on Amazon. You will need two, because if you've got the same brake calipers at the back, which I presume you will have, you will need to do the back ones as well. Now, I've already done the back on this, but I wanted to show you the front ones just because it was a bit easier to show on camera. So I'm now going to disconnect these brakes, take the cable out, and then I'll show you how we go about fitting this travel agent or big snail. Okay, so now we've got a slightly closer view of this. I'll show you again that if we spin this wheel and I then pull the brake, I'm having to pull the brake all the way up to the bar before it engages. And the brake blocks themselves are only about 2 or 3 millimeters away from the side of the rim, so it's not even as though there's an excessive amount of play there. It's just that purely these are short pull shifters and these are long pull brake levers. So what we're going to do first of all is undo the cable here, remove the noodle, and then replace it with our travel agent. So you can use these travel agents in a couple of different ways, and if you can see at the top there are 2 holes, one which already has this screw part in it, and then there's another hole just next to it. With the screw in the left side of the device, you can actually just use this as a standard noodle. It will just go straight through around the big pulley and then straight out this nozzle at the end here. But for our purposes, we are going to remove the screw and then place it into the other side, because as I say, we are going to feed the cable down out of this channel here, wrap around this small wheel, and then up through that hole, and then wrap around onto the big wheel, and come out the bottom here, and then again back through this nozzle. That will effectively then turn this short pull into a long pull by modulating the cable, and will then pull our brake levers. So first things first, we will release the noodle. We'll then undo this nut here to release the cable, and then we can completely remove the noodle. We no longer need this. So in comes our travel agent, and then as I said, we will feed the cable down through around the small wheel, and then you want to get the little notch that I showed you earlier, you want to get that so it's facing straight upwards, so that when we pull the cable all the way through, we can wrap it around the small pulley and then push the cable all the way up and through that little notch. Make sure all of the cable is pulled through and that it's tight when you get to this point. You want to make sure that that cable is facing directly upwards, and then you take the end of it and you push it through the back of the travel agent on the big wheel. Now this bit can be a little bit fiddly, but trust the process. If you pull it all the way through and pull the slack cable, you will end up with it looking like this. Now once you're in that position, you simply feed the cable back through the nozzle and then pull it tight so it's then running around the back of the large wheel. We can feed our cable through the lock nut side of our brake lever, and then we place the travel agent in as though it were the noodle, and then we pull our brake levers together, tighten up our lock nut side slightly, just give us enough to play with the cable, just to play with how tight the brake levers should be. And then once we're happy that the cable is in the correct position and the brake blocks aren't too far away or too close, we can nip that lock nut up. So when we spin the wheel, spinning nicely, and then so just a little pinch of that brake lever and the wheel stops. And now if I really grab a handful of that front lever, there's no way that I can move that wheel around, so that is biting nice and tight. So there you go, just a short one today, but travel agents or big brake snails are your best friend when you are trying to mix road style STI shifters with old mountain bike long pull brake levers. So yeah, as I say, I will link these in the description below where you can find them on Amazon, but otherwise I hope you found that really interesting, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.